When you torque it or take it apart, you take it apart from the outside in, and when you put it together, start on the inside and go out. When you replace the bed knife, there's a lot of difference in bed knives. If you go into the Toro catalog or the Greens King one, there's lists about 6 different bed knives for this reel, the Jacobson, and there's about 6 different ones for the Toro. They go everything from really thick some tough tape. This particular bed knife will fit on this bed bar, and so will this one. And I'll pass that one around. That one's like really monstrously thick, and this one here is relatively thin. It's not super thin. The thinner one is 3/16, and so 3/16 is for greens that are really tall, or basically tee boxes. Bed knives for that Greens King come from 3/16 thickness. 5/16 thin bed knife is 1/8 inch. Super thin is 3/32. A tournament blade is 1/16, and then they have micros, and I don't even know how thin a micro is, but it's less than 1/16. A micro blade is designed for tournament play. It's super, super thin, and it's designed to go out, mow one day, and you throw them away. And so you'd have to replace that blade every single day. And most people can't afford to do that. Just the labor is pretty intensive. So it would be at a very high-end course, at a very special tournament, trying to get the perfect quality of cut. Those types of blades, you would not sharpen them in any way. You just put them on, you go and you cut. You don't worry about it. So, and I don't even have an example, but they're like paper thin. There's not much there. The micro ones? Yeah. If you did, there wouldn't be anything there. Yeah. If you had a case where you were doing that a lot, what you do is make sure that you grind your bed bars so they were parallel, and then when you bolt it on, the micros would be parallel. So you got to be kind of careful. I'm going to pass this blade around. This is a 3/16 bed knife, which is like the one that's going around, the thinner one. And what happened is we went out and we used it, came off of a used one, and we thought, well, what will happen if we try to grind this after it's been used quite a bit? And the determining factor in how far you can grind a bed knife, we don't have our picture anymore, but the bed knife comes across on the top face, and then there's a dip in there. When you've reached the dip, you're done. And this is an example of one that we went ahead and just were practicing grinding, so we ground it down to that lip, and it went all the way into it. We couldn't put that into service. This bed knife, I'll pass it around. It's still, when we ground it, didn't quite reach all the way across, but there's some circles on there, and you'll see this is an aftermarket blade, and it's cracked. It's got about 4 cracks in it because it was brittle and it hit something and it just shattered the blade. I'm going to pass this blade around. This is off of the fairway mower that's out there. If you look on the very end of this blade, right on the 2 ends, there's going to be a little bump. And the bump is where the blade was originally. So you can actually see how much wear this blade has got on it by looking at the original and then looking at where its wear is. And if we tried to grind this, it would hit that low area really fast. And so if you look at it, it's already come to a razor point. It doesn't even have a front face anymore. It's wore all the way down. It's reached its maximum life expectancy. And you can tell how thick it was before I started. If I don't know what size blades are on, I want to put the same blades on, what you'll do is just measure it. Take something out like a dial caliper. You'll measure the thickness of the blade. This one here is 0.13, which is probably going to be 1/8 inch. So it'll be 0.125 is 1/8 inch. This is probably an 1/8 inch blade. So I can just call them up and say I want an 1/8 inch blade, or you go to the catalog, look up that size and order the right blades. We showed you examples last week of impact damage. Here's another blade that's actually contacted something, and all the ends here are broke off. Somebody hit something pretty hard and it jammed in there and went all the way around and shattered it all the way around. That pretty much takes out the blade. You have to replace it. The reel itself, when you're spinning a reel like you're spinning this one, back the blade off, and when you spin it, you're listening for the same thing I'm listening here. If I can hear this reel when it turns, then it's got bad bearings. If you rotate it back and forth and it kind of tends to catch, then it has bad bearings. It's going to have water damage in the bearings, and the damage I'm looking for is pretty much water damage. Water damage is the number one and number 2, 3, 4, 5 reasons why these things go bad. It's just simple water damage. How it got there, washing is a typical one, not greasing is the second one. Having a lot of debris, having loose fixtures are all ways water gets in there.